What's a movie that you think like maybe that's recent or out now where like, you know, you're going to look back on it with nostalgia?
God, that's again.
It's a tough one.
Well, it's tough because so many of the movies that we're experiencing right now, it's like you hate to say it, but you feel like Hollywood, I guess, is in sort of a creative crisis where almost everything happening right now is like a remake or a sequel or a reincarnation of some different story. Certainly, like you look at the blockbusters and stuff like that. I mean, that's almost what. But I just don't know. And it's so weird because like you pointed out, like, there could be something that came out 4 years ago.
Right.
And you see it on screen again, and you're like, oh, it makes you kind of feel like, I missed that character or whatnot.
Well, because I think when a lot of people mention nostalgia, not to go on a tirade about this, but like I think a lot of people you hear that word and you instinctually think, oh, it's something when I was a kid.
Right.
You always like think a kid. It's like, well, but someone could be like, 30, and then when they're 50, they look back on something and be like, oh, this reminds me of when I was 30.
Right.
And
exactly.
it's like,
exactly.
I think it is there for certainly all forms of life. That's for sure. Mm-hmm. And just to touch on what you said about the originality in movies and whatnot, I try not to generalize too much, and I'm not nitpicking you on you know saying Hollywood and whatnot, because a lot of people do it. I've done it before myself. I thank God that there's like studios out there, not to sound like a douche or a snob, but like A24 and places like that are putting out a lot of original content. Absolutely. And also some of these streamers that are out there that are likewise putting out stuff. Television is certainly in a high point that it hasn't been forever. But I will absolutely say you're hitting the money on the head when it comes to the big budget, like blockbuster types. Mm-hmm. You don't see very often many studios these days, especially, that are taking a financial gamble with something that isn't already an established IP, or something that has like a sequel or name recognition. I think maybe the last time, and this might not be the greatest example, but I'm thinking on the fly, that they did this was the Valerian in the City of a Thousand Planets. If you guys seen that movie, it's a Luc Besson movie. The guy who did like The Fifth Element and like Leon the Professional. It's not a very good movie. I just want to point that out. It's not very good. But there is a lot of beautiful visuals in the movie, and there's a lot of good ideas there. It just, to me, like doesn't go in the execution. But still, that's like the last movie I can remember where it wasn't some really well-known thing, and they actually were able to get some money behind it. I don't know what it takes always to get that, especially with this economy and entertainment right now.
Yeah, and there's another thing to be said about this, talking about, and I can't believe that this idea wasn't spurred from talking about IP. It was spurred from the fact that you said that there was a bad film that had good cinematography. There was a film that I watched in February at Film Scene at the Chauncey, which is Iowa City's art house, and basically they have this thing called Late Shift at the Grindhouse, and they usually bring in some like obscure horror, dark comedy film. In a deviation, they brought in a new release, a little film called Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey.
I sadly have heard of this.
Yes, I saw it. It was a sold out crowd, and basically, the reason why it was brought up from like bad from a bad story, good cinematography, is that my biggest takeaway is that film, if anything, is a masterclass in how you can do low budget cinematography and have it be like visually pleasing and very well done. That being said, it's so bad and I loved it.
Yeah.
It's like one of those like films that you don't watch to enjoy. You watch to laugh at and make fun of.
Do the filmmakers know this? Or do you think they were actually like intentionally wanting to like make a serious film that people are not doing what you're describing?
I can't imagine.
It's an anomaly. We still need to watch that. I need to get the boys over, and we need to watch that. You see, I can see it going either way. You see, it was done on like a sub $100,000 budget, and it's already made like $5 million in the box office and in Prime streaming. Stuff
that is the beauty about horror. I mean, say what you will about the rest of like different genres and studios, but horror is horror remains pretty solid.
Right.
Like, it's a solid bet. You can get away with making it relatively cheap, and there is a rabid audience of people that are happy to go out and either watch something because it's like a Leprechaun thing where it's just like it's so ridiculous and goofy, but you want to watch it, or it's like so creeped out that you just get the rush of endorphins that go through you. Well, it's crazy.
One that I really like is I don't know if you've heard of the Terrifier movies. The Terrifiers.
I don't think so.
Two, and that's the same thing. It's like a super. It had like the first one had like a $200,000 budget, and ended up making, I think, about $5 million in theaters. But it was almost strictly word of mouth, and it was such a low budget movie, but it had gore and like real horror done so shockingly well that everybody was talking about it, and that's what drove, and they did a sequel and just doubled down on it, slightly bigger budget. And the sequel came out, and there were people passing out and puking in theaters because of the sheer gore factor and just how horrific it is, and that show, it's like, how horror specifically, you could just be so incredibly creative. It's such an easy emotion to derive from people. It almost feels cheap at some points, like your cheap jump scares or something like that, versus you make a drama, you really have to have an intriguing story, a really good screenplay. Like, you have to have some serious talent in order to get a pure emotion out of people.
Sure. Yeah, because that's an important thing to point out with horror, is like to dive deeper onto the cheap scare, or the jump scare. I think that's like the common one you said.
Right.
But to be fair, for horror movies and whatnot, there's a lot more that you can get away with that's just surface level stuff. Makeup, practical effects, how you shoot something, music cues, all these different things you can do, and you don't necessarily have to even have the greatest actor in the world to portray it. So yeah, I mean, it makes sense why it's popular. I don't know if I've ever watched something that like makes me want to like puke or pass out. I have a pretty, I don't know, like I've seen a lot of twisted movies over the years. Probably maybe not so much as some, but I don't know. Have you guys ever like seen something where it's like, man, this is pushing my boundaries?
I thought the same thing, and like, I know Terrifier 2 is now on Amazon Prime, but like when it first
you can watch it on Amazon Prime streaming right now.
Yeah, there you go.
Sorry, it just sounded like a sponsor plug
there. But I watched a few scenes of it on YouTube.
Yeah,
and I'm the same way. It's like I'll watch a good gory movie, and I've got a pretty strong stomach, right? But like, some of the lengths and I'm going to spoil the specific scene because I'd hope that eventually you'll see it and experience it for yourself.
Again, Terrifier 2 is available on Amazon. You can watch it right now.
It was like shocking, and they like that was their goal, right? Like it's almost comedic when you watch this specific scene, because they're just thinking of how far can we take this.
Yeah,
it doesn't make any sense at all in the story. But it's just like, it's shocking, and that was one of the only times where I was sitting there, I was like, maybe I don't want to keep watching this. It's like,
it can be a good sign though if you actually are having something make you uncomfortable.
Right, exactly. They're doing their job.
It's not always pleasant.
Yeah,
and I think that's can be. I've talked with this in general about movies before with people, where so many times when we think of movies, we think of the escapist aspect or just pure entertainment or nostalgia, like we talked about. But what about the movies that just upset you, like that just make you go like, ugh? Or like you're like disgusted, or you're like appalled, like they even offend you. Is that not a good thing sometimes?
I mean, absolutely. It means that they're successful. I mean, anytime you can pull that emotion, and everybody experiences a movie differently, right? Like, everybody has their own interpretation, but regardless of what that interpretation is, a good movie pulls out that emotion from you, and that's I think a standard that you try and reach for. Definitely.
Yeah. I kind of go to this is my default until I probably see more of David Lynch's catalog. I'll refer back to Blue Velvet, which is the revisiting it, it's definitely a lot better than I remember it being. That being said, the content in it can be objectionable at sometimes, and and I remember I watched it for my film theory class, and there were people in there that basically refused to look at it from a theoretical standpoint just because of there were the objectionable points that they just could not look past. And I mean, to some it's unfortunate, especially David Lynch fans, but to others and I would even say David Lynch would say it's understandable. Just the fact that especially if you've experienced some of the horrible things that happen in these movies, then it's definitely you're allowed to take what you will, and you're allowed to just feel what you feel. There's no bounds, nothing.
I try to look at it a lot of the times in the frames of context, because that's where a movie to me can kind of make or break those types of things. Because if it is pushing the envelope and whatnot, it's like, let's remember, at the end of the day, it is a movie. This is not something where a person is putting out a political or a social statement, though some might argue that through the messaging in the movie they are. And in some cases, sure, they are. But at the end of the day, it is a movie. And I don't necessarily think, unless it's like some 1 in a million movie where it is just sweeping across to every generation, everybody is taking away something for it. It has a legacy of 50 years. I mean, it doesn't happen that often. So many times, even if I watch some movie where I'm like, oh, I'm repulsed and, oh, this upset me, I guess what, in a year from now, it's not going to matter.
Right.
I mean, that's just kind of the deal.
Yeah, and even nowadays in the climate of films, and kind of going back to Blood and Honey, and what they're doing is not many people really found the gore objectionable, or the I guess some of the other aspects of it objectionable. The only thing that they really found really wrong about it is that they're taking a children's oriented IP,
right,
and basically running with it in a direction that is not meant for them. And to some that's definitely warranted. Like, you don't want to take your kid to Winnie the Pooh slasher film.
I don't know. I think I might want to.
Oh, all right. Well, to each their own. I won't tell you how to parent your kids, but
I don't have one yet. I'm just thinking of the future offspring. I want to mess them up at an early age, if possible.
Yeah. But basically getting off of that.
Yeah.
They're taking another aspect of nostalgia, as far as IPs go, and running with it in a way that a lot of these studios would run with, and that is making it I guess the more apt term, instead of a series or an anthology, is a cinematic universe. Because if you look at the director Rhys Frake Waterfield, if you look at his IMDb, there are 3 films in pre-production: Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey 2, Peter Pan, and Bambi: The Reckoning.
What? Oh no.
And these are and this all spins into a brand new thing that we are just experiencing now. A new thing that is most likely going to twist how people view IPs now, or established IPs, especially ones from the Disney catalogs when they borrowed them from I guess the novels or literature,
right? And
that is the public domain. They basically it would have been a lot sooner if a bunch of like Disney lawyers tried to protect Mickey Mouse so many times. Now I think it's 75 years after the author's death, you can use the copyrighted material. That
it's something like that.
And I think basically the only characters so far in the Winnie the Pooh area that are in the public domain are Winnie the Pooh, Piglet, Owl, and Rabbit. And I think in 2026 or 2027, Tigger is gonna get in there. And I'm just gonna say, as a person that basically views Blood and Honey as a film that's so bad it's good. I really, really hope that that Tigger comes by in Blood and Honey 2 or Blood and Honey 3 and kicks some ass too. So,
I think something interesting. I was just thinking about listening to you talk about this, but like, it is interesting when you take something that is well known, specifically in this case, something that is predominantly considered for children, and you turn it into some murderous freak show thing and do what you will with it for an audience. Because there's certainly one there. I mean, it proved it because it's making a sequel and, sells out a house full of theater people that are probably having a good time laughing at. I'm sure I'd probably be, having a hoot with it. People still say that. But it is interesting that you can take some of these things and sort of not only change the genre, but you're changing the tone. And it gets me thinking, like, people complain so many times about like remakes and, unoriginal ideas and stuff like that. I know it's not for everybody, and I'm not saying take every children's story out there and make Thomas the Train into like a serial killer or something crazy like that. But I do like the idea better of taking something old and flipping its genre or putting it into a different lane to kind of be in while still maintaining some of that, rather than just doing these kind of copy and paste remakes. One of the biggest offenders of that was The Lion King, that Disney one that had no soul, and it looked nice for sure.
Right.
But I don't know. I'd rather do that, but then that's the weird thing I think studios kind of get in a bind on, is they know that challenges people.
And it's risk. And we argue about this all the time, specifically about Lion King, because like, you look at the Disney remakes, and essentially what it is it's taking a great story, and putting a more sort of technical, complicated picture to it, right? I mean, that like Beauty and the Beast. I mean, it's essentially the same story, but you're watching the movie through a completely different view, where it's in the real world. And why I think they're so popular is because those movies, the sort of the Disney heyday, the renaissance of Disney animation, it hit home for that generation of people, and they were so popular then, where the people it was popular with then have evolved and grown,
right,
individually as people, where now they get to experience the same story that they did when they were younger, but in a completely different light, and that's why, like, I love the original Lion King, and watching the remake, in my eyes, it was everything I enjoyed about the original story,
right?
But just like a prettier visual, and that's why like I don't, there's a complaint about original ideas and stuff, but it's like a cheap high, watching one of those movies, because I know I'm gonna love the story, I know I'm gonna love watching it, and you kind of feel a little guilty because not a whole lot of like creative story work went into it, but
sure,
the amount of people that it takes to animate something like that, and what they put into it, it's the technical side. You're enjoying the same thing you did as a kid, just in a more evolved light, essentially.
Yeah.
In a prettier visual, huh?
Right.
Man, there are a lot of animation theorists that would love to talk to you.
Well, I'm all for hand-drawn animation and original animation and stuff like that, but like, you can't deny the fact that there's a lot more detail in something like a live-action Jungle Book or live-action Lion King than there was in hand-drawn. It's just because you can't reach that level of detail in hand-drawn. And hand-drawn animation or simple animation like that, there's a reason it's so popular, is because it does exactly what it needs to with as minimal work as possible. But I mean, it's just, to me personally, it's just more stimulating watching like the Jungle Book live action versus the original Jungle Book. They're both great, just completely different forms of animation. Both are are intriguing.
But how much of that detail is necessary? One thing that I really go to, and this is basically what our banter is
Right.
is based off of, is like we find a point and we kind of just dig deeper into it. My biggest argument for saying that the 2019 Lion King is not good and the original one is like, I think it's my fourth now in my most recent I guess ranking of my top 10 films is either fourth or fifth favorite film. I often fall back to the anthropomorphic features of the faces of the characters. Like Zazu has teeth. Let's see. And like there are more humanistic aspects to the lions. They're still lions, but you can identify a bit more with the face because it's animated and drawn more to, I guess, be able to show human emotions. Like
it emotes a little bit better.
Yeah, you can see Simba when he's like Simba grits his teeth and is running towards Scar. He's angry. He's full of rage right now. Young Simba, his ears go down and his face is like really long when it's like that zoom out shot when I guess spoiler alert, Mufasa falls to his death.
What?
What?
What happens? Oh my God. Jesus.
Child, it's ruined. He's been holding out this long to watch The Lion King, and he just
been holding out
blew it.
I had only
long?
seen the 2016. I'm just kidding. No.
Yeah.
Continue.
Yeah. You can see that, and you can characterize that more. Whereas in reality, you can't tell if a lion is looking. A lion that's looking at you is just looking at you just like as a moving blob just walking through his territory, or if he's looking at you like your dinner. Mm-hmm. And that's my point specifically for this conversation. And I guess this is kind of like what we do when we're just hanging out.
Yeah, well, and you guys are looking at it both from like different lenses too, just kind of exploring the idea of it. I think, Dillon, you brought up an interesting point with just the fact that whenever the original came out, I don't know what year exactly, but the animations of it do include a lot of human features for the animals so that you can kind of feel the emotions more and stuff. But I just find that's interesting because, of course, you watch that and it's like a cartoon. So maybe you kind of give it a pass on some of those, it's not that realistic to how like the animals of the safari like wander around. But then doing the experiment of making it be more photoreal and doing everything, it's like, well, the story beats are all the same. Even the voice acting is still pretty good and everything, but you don't connect with it as much because you don't see those things. But then it's like, it's not what like real animals are, but is that really the point?
Yeah. And I think, like it's sort of hit and miss because like I never, you heard a lot of this criticism and, rightfully so. Mm-hmm. You heard a lot of this criticism when The Lion King came out, right? For whatever reason, I didn't hear, it seems like the Jungle Book remake is like universally loved. Like
I think a lot of people seem to like that.
Right. And it's essentially the exact same thing as the Lion King as far as animation goes. You're taking a cartoonish, animal and bringing it into a real world. And
Jon Favreau did that one too, right?
Yep.
And he did both.
I think the CGI is so revolutionary at the time. Mm-hmm. But it's really hit and miss because like The Little Mermaid, the most recent one.
Did you guys see that?
I haven't seen it yet, but I know a big criticism was the flounder, the little fish and the crab
Sebastian.
Sebastian. In the movie, they're more lifelike real world animals, right?
Right.
And it's they took a lot of liberties, animating the creatures back in the day. So it just looks like a completely different character. And that's a complaint that a lot of people have is it's hard to connect with them. Mm-hmm. But I always like, specifically when it comes to something like The Lion King, I looked at it as just generally completely broad. You have you have people that enjoy sort of natural beauty, and you have people that enjoy more artistic beauty, right? And I've always been a guy where I love like just landscape photographs.
Will you cry at the Grand Canyon?
I've never been there, but that's one of the things. Like,
Isn't
you've
that
seen
like a
so
cliche?
many.
I feel like that's a
Right.
cliche. Like real men cry at like a sunset or something.
Right,
I don't know.
I enjoy super detailed landscape, natural beauty.
Sure.
Whereas there's other people who would enjoy a more unique sort of creative take on what that might be. And I think that's a big section of what the divide is. I enjoy looking at more realistic, natural pictures or scenes and stuff like that. And some people are just the opposite. But how great is it now that we have a version of a story like The Lion King where it caters to both sides of that spectrum, Well,
and I also think too, regardless of where you stand on this particular movie, we won't have the conversation until someone does this. It's like like stuff like this. I think it does need to happen sometimes to sort of challenge the system of like movies getting made like this. I do think there is a purpose to it, and there is an actual social like a utility, so to speak, that kind of goes with it.
Right.
My big thing on remakes, just in general, and then we'll keep going, is I don't care sometimes if something gets remade. I just want there to be a either artistic or a reason for the story, or there is a compelling reason to do it other than just, this is a recognizable brand, we'll sell tickets.
Exactly.
Like, I just don't really want that. Like, if you're going to change the story or do like a Winnie the Pooh thing or something, like, put it into a Blood and Honey, that's fine, because you're doing something different. You're taking a creative liberty. I might not like it, but I'm going to respect you for it.
Right.
Whereas if you're just really going to tell the same story and just kind of interchange a few things, why do I don't need that. Like, right. I can just watch the original. And then I think the real scary situation you run into is people kind of shudder in horror if they ever say they're going to remake Forrest Gump or they're going to, remake The Godfather. You'd be like, are you kidding?
Right.
Like, what are you doing?
There's some things you shouldn't touch.
Because I think that's like the slippery slope that sometimes people think these things get into. And one thing I definitely got to mention on this, everybody that's listening, you guys cannot forget this. Studios are about money. Okay. I mean, let's not forget there is an entertainment business at a whole, and they look at what people are paying for. So if you want original movies, you want stuff to go, you're going to maybe have to see the comic book movies a little bit less. You're going to have to go put your wallet someplace else, because that's ultimately what gets these things made at the end of the day is money.
Right.
So
absolutely.
Just a little message I had to put out there on that. Now, I got a question for you guys here. I was thinking about this because I have a lot of these movies back here behind me. We were talking about that earlier. And sometimes I like to be one of those people where I'll, recommend it. And I'll just be like, hey, like I got the, physical copy, hashtag physical media forever. And I will lend it out to somebody, right? I'm curious how both of you guys, how do you go about recommending a movie to somebody? Like if there's a movie that like you really, does something for you and you want someone else to partake in it, like what do you do to get that done?
A lot of times if I'm able to, and it's a movie that I want to share, share with somebody. It's, hey, let's get a group together, come over, we'll make dinner. We'll watch this movie. And we do it a lot with our friend group. We discover something new. It's like, hey, we need to find the time, get a couple guys together.
Do you guys talk during the movie or you sit silent?
Yeah.
It depends on the movie.
Right.
Yeah.
And it does. That's why I think I love one thing that just, and I'm guilty of the exact same thing. And it's one of those hypocritical things where I see it happen and I freaking hate when people do it, but I find myself doing the exact same thing. And it's, you're sitting at home on your couch watching a movie, you pop your phone out during a slow part of the, and if it's a movie I've seen before and, I'm guilty of it, but that's why I personally love the theater experience so much. And if I see a movie, that's just coming out, and I want someone like Dillon or one of our other buddies to experience, hey, let's bite the bullet. Let's go buy a ticket. Let's go see it in the theater, because it's just, you don't do that in a theater setting, right? Most people don't, right? But if you're, especially the more expensive, tickets, like for most new movies that come out, this day, and if they're a real movie that I want to see, like every Marvel movie that comes out, or DC movie or whatever, Oppenheimer, that's one coming up. I go to the biggest screen I possibly can within a reasonable range of my house. I always have the Thursday night early screening, opening tickets, because I know the experience of me sitting in that theater with other people that are willing to spend the money and take the time to put into seeing that movie ahead of people are just a lot more respectful. Whereas when you go to a theater after the movie's been out for 4 weeks and you pay $3 for a ticket, it's more people, maybe someone's looking for cheap babysitting and they want to bring their kid to a theater. It's a lot more loud. There's a lot more phones. People aren't, it's just, you don't have as much invested in it that.
No. I know exactly what one you were talking about. The re-release for Spider-Man No Way Home.
Yeah, yes. Exactly.
Yes,
that was and
did you guys have a bad experience?
It was it was free. It was like a free ticket, or like it was like cheap.
It was like $4 tickets, and it was like a national celebration of movie theaters, and we had people up in front, like literally having like conversations like we're having right now at the pitch that we're having. I went down to go to the bathroom, and there was this guy that was in the middle of the aisle kneeling down giving I'm assuming his girlfriend a foot massage, and then there was a bunch of other people, and basically eventually somebody shouted out, literally just like, guys, shut up, you're being so rude, oh my god. And then finally some people near the front row, I'm assuming it was the foot massage people, because they were the biggest offenders. Some theater managers came out and kicked them out, and they made a big show.
Oh yeah.
And luckily it was in like one of the most boring parts of it. I'm trying to remember what exactly, but yeah, they finally got kicked out, and yeah. It was
the more money you have invested in, the more people who are there that actually care about the theater going experience, and that's why I'm willing to pay $16 for a ticket and go experience it, because I know it's going to be a respectful audience, and that's why ideally a theater or at home is where I encourage my buddies to see a movie or I mean, I'm not the type. I mean, if somebody. As much as I love physical media,
sure,
I can't deny the fact that I have a number of streaming services I'm subscribed to.
I don't judge, man.
But it's one of those deals where I like actually pay for maybe 2 of them.
Yeah.
And then here's my login information. And I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine. So I have access to pretty much every streaming service there is, and I only pay for maybe 2 of them. You help each other out. So. That last case scenario is, hey, I want you to watch this movie. When you got time, check this one out. Like one of our buddies, I rewatched The Sopranos all the way through just recently.
I can tell you, I've never seen The Sopranos, and I feel like crazy on that because I love mob movies and like the whole thing.
You need to, and I can't. I think it's on HBO Max. Is where I
don't you
I
mean
rewatch
Max?
It. Yeah, my bad, Max. But I told him, I was like, you need to watch The Sopranos, and over the course of maybe a month or so, he watched the series and I don't know how much he paid attention or whatever, but like I wasn't there to nitpick or get mad if he's on his phone or something like that. Right. but he had a good experience watching it, and that that's all I care about is somebody could enjoy it as much as everybody else. So
Dillon, what about you? How do you go about recommending to people?
Kind of on the same vein of that is basically, if it's a new release, I'll just band a bunch of people and I'll go and see it in the theater. And the whole thing, I remember I think Lucas said, okay, I'll just bite the bullet and buy a ticket. And the fact that you have to say bite the bullet is kind of a telling part of where ticket prices are going. And there are some places that like very like I guess local like nonprofit theaters. I think we have like 2 or 3 in our area where basically they play movies, but they get them maybe like 2 weeks after it's been released, and but the tickets are like $4 or $5, and the concessions are even cheaper sometimes. Mm-hmm. The issue you have there is that they will only play films that will have the greatest community outreach, which probably means that there are a bunch of movies oriented towards children. Right. And Marvel movies basically. Right. And with that, it sucks that they probably won't be getting into more art house cinema. Mm-hmm. And I sound so pompous when I say that, but I mean it's true. If you can just get past the fact that it's not a Marvel or a DC movie, mm-hmm. you open up the world of cinema by like, I don't know, like probably like 30% more. And then if you can just subtitle all the foreign films, then you get the entire scope of cinema.
Yeah, there's a lot of thoughts that are running through my head listening to both of you guys talk about it. One, I think it's really interesting that when you're asked the question, you kind of think about not necessarily the, strictly physical media thing where I'm going to borrow someone a disc and stuff. Not that that's not possible. These days, you might just recommend someone to watch something on a streaming service, like put it on your list, mm-hmm. do that whole thing. But even recommending someone to the theatrical experience, which I am glad you guys touched on that, because I love the theatrical experience. I don't do it for every movie, but right. Who does? Right. But I think you both said something where I think it's true in that the ticket price is an interesting thing, especially now. We all know how expensive a late night matinee is, especially if it's opening weekend and whatnot. You get like one of those heated seats or, something mm-hmm. scratch your backs or something. It could be like, $16, $17, yep. like for like a ticket if it's expensive enough. Mm-hmm. But it is interesting where if you're talking about the price of tickets and you keep them too cheap, it does seem to open the door for disrespect. Right. Or it can just kind of like anybody can come in and do this. And weirdly enough, you don't want to be excluding the people. That's mm-hmm. kind of the point of movies, is you want to bring people together. But then it's like, if people are not paying that money on there, then how do you kind of find that happy middle ground to be able to accommodate both? Right. And that's why I think, it's so great that you have a wide variety of theaters that are able to reach all those. Like my go-to is the Marcus Theater in Waterloo. It's got the DLX, the deluxe Dolby, big screen with the reclining chairs and everything. Like, it's a fancy theater. Mm-hmm. I know for a Thursday night early screening of a brand new blockbuster coming out, it's going to cost me $16 and some change for a ticket, and probably $20 to $25 for a food. So I've gone to so many and done the same process. I understand what I'm getting into, money wise, but there's a certain group of people that are willing to pay that for that experience. And the opening night early screenings at those big deluxe theaters are for that group of people, you know. And the theaters that are going to get the movie 2 weeks later for a $3 ticket and some cheap popcorn are for the people who still would like to enjoy a movie, but maybe aren't concerned that much with the theatrical experience as a whole. Yeah, it's just a good way to see the movie, I think two things that it's a combination of the relationship that happens with the distributor and the exhibitionist being the theater owner is you have to sort of find that fine line between the numbers where we don't want to necessarily go too cheap, but we don't want to alienate and have everything be super expensive only for like the hardcore film people that really respect this and treat it like a church practically when they go. I have been one of those people where if you get me on this subject, I don't think the profit model is fair for a lot of theater chains to make enough money, henceforth why they have expensive ass popcorn and other stuff. Why that model has not been reworked, or maybe, God forbid, somebody has tried to do it and I'm just not aware of it. I'm not sure, but I do think there's something to be said about how much the studios do take and leave for the theater to kind of fend for themselves, and that's kind of why you have some of these inconsistencies with your quality of theater. Now, that's just a generalization. I'm sure there's more to it.
I could get into that, but I will opt not to, just because I'll send us down a rabbit hole and we'll never be able to dig ourselves out.
Another time.
Yes.
And what you pointed out earlier, just real quick to wrap it up.
Yeah.
If people are willing to pay that number, then the ticket price isn't going to change. And where I think a lot of theaters understand, we're selling out the theaters at $16 and $17 a ticket.
Right.
So there's no incentive to lower the price of tickets, and because I mean, hey, you're selling that you got people like me willing to pay that price. It's the same thing as movies. You want to send a message. Yeah. Stop opening up your wallet. Yep. You don't like all these Disney remakes, these Disney blockbusters.
No,
they're making $1 billion each.
I'm really big on putting your money where your mouth is, or at least I really try my best to do that. Now, I'm not going to pretend like I'm someone like I'll never shop at a corporate place. Yes, I have bought a Starbucks before. Okay, I've done it. Gone to a Target, I've gone to these big places, but if it's something I do really care about, like I'll find a Kickstarter or I will find somebody's merch that they have for something that I really believe in what they're doing, and absolutely. I want to put it out there. I do think it's important that people do that for movies for sure, and they continue to, because a lot of those people, they may not always get the credit, but they're what is kind of the lifeblood and keeps it going ultimately for economic reasons. But one more couple little things on here, and then I think we're gonna call this quits on this. But I have enjoyed the conversation thus far with the both of you. I don't usually do this, but for some reason when I was prepping this, I was like, I want to kind of play a couple little games with you guys before we're done. I know some podcasts do that; they throw in a game, and I'm like, I'll give it a whirl. So, okay, this is what I got, and you don't have to overthink these. This game, I don't have a great name for it. I'm just going to call it the Men in Black Neuralize a Movie thing, where, you take the little thing, and that was a cheap sound effect of the erase your memory thing. So basically, I'm going to give you guys 2 movies, and you have to select one that you would happily erase your memory of ever seeing so that you could rewatch it again for the first time.
Yep, that's good.
Okay. Good. So, this first one. 2001 Space Odyssey or Blade Runner?
I would have to go with Blade Runner or Blade Runner 2049.
Good distinction. The first one.
The first one?
Yeah.
I'd have to go with Blade Runner because I haven't seen 2001.
Okay.
So
you can have that moment.
Yeah, I can have that moment still. So yeah, I would definitely go with Blade Runner.
I'm sort of the exact opposite. Never seen Blade Runner. Never gotten into that franchise. Mm-hmm. So I'd say if I could relive watching 2001 again, I mean, yeah, it'd be solid. But I'd want to relive it in a theater. Like how
I was just about to say, if you have not seen it, I don't know when their next rescreening of something's going to be, but I would definitely recommend, if that can be your first time, make that happen.
Yeah.
You will be pleased. I think if I was answering that, it is tough. I think emotionally speaking, I get more out of Blade Runner, just on personal levels, but then cinematic, artistic, just the pure auteur, without sounding too pretentious. Kubrick, I mean, I don't know how I really match that.
Right.
It is tough, but I'm going to go with Blade Runner because, especially at the age I'm at now, I think if I didn't have any memory of it and went into it at the age I am now versus when I did first watch it when I was younger, I didn't appreciate it as much then. Mm-hmm. I feel like I'm at a better mindset if I was going to rewatch it now.
Yes, definitely. I keep on meaning to do this. I have the same experience with the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I watched it when I was 10 or 11, and I think I only started really appreciating it when I saw The Return of the King. So yeah. Oh, another distinction: theatrical cut or director's cut of Blade Runner.
Well, the Blade Runner one's tricky because there's 5 cuts. There's the final cut as well.
I've seen the director's cut.
I don't even know which one that is because I know there's 2 director's cuts. There's a fan cut. There's a lot of different cuts.
I don't know if there's that much of a convoluted distinction.
I'll say this, not the theatrical one, I guess, because it's really weird. Everybody that saw that, they pretty much universally panned it. Even the creators, they're just that one sucked. Like it's weird. Okay, next one. Goodfellas or Casino. So you got to erase your memory of one, assuming that you both have seen that.
I'd say Goodfellas.
These are the moments that I question whether or not I should be going into cinema. I can't answer this because I haven't seen either.
Okay. Hey, you know what? Fair enough. And something I got to throw this out there to people, because how often have we been in a room or we've been in the conversation and you say to me, hey, Jordan, I've never seen Goodfellas. And you get the, oh my God, like, what the hell's wrong with you? Like, blah, 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 blah. Like, there are so many movies out there. How am I going to fault somebody for not seeing one?
And nowadays, you only get that for Marvel and
Right.
Marvel and like superhero and other like Disney movies, because at least for the layman's, most people have only seen Disney and Marvel movies.
Yeah.
And that is extremely unfortunate. Guys, if you're, I'm assuming if you're listening to this podcast, you're not that kind of person. I hope not. But if you have a friend that does that, sit them down, like tell them we're like, give them a date and time. We're watching The Godfather, or we're watching Apocalypse Now, or we're watching Citizen Kane.
Interesting thing that you brought up. You might not have meant to, but it brought it up in my brain. Is my wife and I are actually like this sometimes, where she is not a movie person. I mean, she loves me. She respects my craft for this. She respects the podcast. It's awesome. I love you. Couldn't do it without you. But I do like how she is open-minded to watching a movie that like I maybe have a passion about. Like, you mentioned The Godfather. I'll just say, let's say I made her watch Apocalypse Now, right? She would watch that movie and maybe not fully like kind of understand it, but she actually would want to have me kind of talk about it after the fact, and then be like, oh, that's kind of different. Like, now I do have a different appreciation. And I do think it is interesting where if you did find that friend and you put them down and you have them watch The Godfather, they're not having to do it alone. They sort of have not to say like you like know everything with film, but you can be a guide to them kind of in a way to help ease them into looking into movies of this world. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, that's actually something that I do. Like currently, it's like whenever I have like a film that I personally enjoy, but most people probably wouldn't do that. Like literally the catalog for most of the catalog for the Cannes Film Festival every year, or Sundance or something, because they're at least those are the ones that get out there. I think the most recent one was I find that it's much more you get much better results if you ask the person for a date and a time that they're available, and then say, okay, we are going to go ahead and watch this. Because to some people, the reason why that they dedicate themselves to a TV show is because they can start and stop whenever they want to.
Right.
Whereas a film, you have to sit down for an hour or 2 hours.
Please don't pause it a bunch.
Yeah.
Like, no.
No, that's not that. And while I prefer the latter, a bunch of people prefer the former. So I for film theory, I watched Portrait of a Lady on Fire, which was premiered at the Cannes Film Festival in 2019, won Best Screenplay. And if you watch it, you'll see why. It is really good.
I have not seen that.
Yeah, and one of my friends who is part of the demographic that I would say would really enjoy that. Basically, I asked her, hey, I have this movie that I watched. When am I crashing by your place, and when are we watching it? And she gave me a date and time.
Just make it happen.
I went over and I put it up on Prime, and bam, yeah. Portrait of a Lady on Fire is available on Amazon Prime.
That was some supreme sound quality.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. If anything, I'll just take the decibel level on that specific moment and just really crank it up so that people know to get that movie.
Yeah. I actually, about the podcast voice. I do. Yeah, and I'll say this, and then we'll get to the next part of it.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah. My academic advisor at the University of Iowa. We've had all of our meetings have been over on Zoom, and I definitely don't have as nice of a mic for that. I literally bought something from Walmart for like $20.
Hey, you gotta start somewhere.
Yeah. So I I put that on there, and I would have conversation with her. And when I was getting basically all my ducks in a row to get registered for classes in this upcoming semester, she told me, "Hey, have you ever thought about starting a podcast?" And I'm like, "Oh, I mean, I've tried it before. I've been on other podcasts." She's like,
Sure.
"Yeah, no. You seem like you have one of the voices that would be on like a true crime podcast or on like a narrative podcast almost." So, I mean, if the practical filmmaking or the live action filmmaking doesn't work out, I might go into voice acting. Who knows?
There's a whole thing we could talk about on what makes a person's voice be something that other people want to listen to, aside from personality or anything like that. It's just purely like, what is it about the inflection and the sound of my voice that makes somebody want to tune in? Presumably, it's an interesting subject.
Yeah,
something to definitely rattle around in your brain late at night.
Yeah,
but another one to think about here, guys. This one is pretty easy. Jaws, Jurassic Park. Which one are we going to erase? From
Jurassic Park.
Yeah, Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park.
Why is that?
It's basically I go on spectacle. Jurassic Park is in my top 10 favorite films of all time.
Yeah.
And I will say I saw Jaws before I saw Jurassic Park, and it was like a 6-month difference though. And I don't know. Even as a kid, I was able to see through the the fact that Jaws was a puppet, was an animatronic.
Yeah.
I was able to see through that. And given it was a product of its time, and I'm assuming most of the time they were hoping to obscure most of the animatronic in the water more than it probably was. And it also was a nightmare to operate if we get Richard Dreyfuss or Steven Spielberg on here.
I'll get him on.
Yeah, you'll get him on and basically just talk about all the technical errors that they had with the Jaws animatronic, and you can fill yourself out on like a 2.5-hour podcast. Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
The first time that a lot of people go to the T-Rex or to the Brachiosaurus when you first see them, and both of those are really, really good. Like both of those are really good spots. What I really liked were the Velociraptors, and just the fact that they were able to move so dynamically, and albeit you'll be able to see some parts where maybe they slipped up on the parts where they wanted to be more practical with them. But yeah, that's that. And another interesting thing that I learned from film theory, Steven Spielberg. After shooting Jurassic Park, basically they were doing the CG for it, and basically 24 frames of one dinosaur CG model took like 6 hours to render.
That's wild.
And it was such a lengthy process that Steven Spielberg actually went and shot Schindler's List while Jurassic Park was still rendering. So the whiplash that Spielberg must have felt going from Holocaust movie to Holocaust dinosaurs.
I know he actually, weirdly enough, he talked about that specifically in like a fairly recent interview. Something for like probably like press for like the Fablemans or something, because I think that's his most recent one. But I swear to God, if you look it up, he literally talks about that juxtaposition of like dinosaurs, Holocaust. Big difference.
I mean, albeit if you're talking about Jurassic Park, the novel, the whiplash may not be as prevalent.
I never read the book.
Yeah. If you ever read the book, it's not an adventure. It's not a fun adventure. It's go into it expecting more of a horror element.
Should that get remade then?
Yeah.
Because maybe it could be more faithful to the book.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, in the book, Michael Crichton, who's the author, makes it known that like there's the part where they talk about how they had to fill the holes in the DNA with like the DNA of like frogs and lizards.
Dino DNA.
Michael Crichton, and basically one of the characters has a revelation. These aren't dinosaurs. These are not dinosaurs, and it's a biological fact in that fantasy, but somehow it makes it even scarier.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And I think the good thing about, for people my age, I feel like you're almost able to relive the experience of watching Jurassic Park again when they did Jurassic World. because it was such a well done sequel, and I think why so many people enjoyed it is you took so many of the original elements that you liked from Jurassic Park, and they built off of that, but they also gave you pieces that you wished you could have seen. Like, they gave you what a fully functioning dinosaur park could be.
Yeah,
And
I think in that one
like,
too, they had like the underwater dinosaur as well, which I think people had wanted to see something like that.
Yeah. So that's an example of building off of a popular IP.
Yeah.
But telling an original, compelling, story that just builds on what was previously there.
I will say this just for the record. I am not personally a fan of the Jurassic World movies or any of that, but I do like the Velocicoaster at Universal, which is an offshoot from that movie. So I guess without that movie, I don't get the Velocicoaster.
Right,
so I will take that.
Yeah. The convergence of IPs and putting them into other mediums of entertainment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I always I always think it'd be really interesting, like, not to go on a squirrel moment about theme parks and IP going into that, but like, what's Schindler's List the ride? What is that? Probably not anything appropriate.
I could give a very, very dark answer, but I probably won't because I'll probably get canceled.
Yeah, no, and maybe that's like a drastic thing, but it's like, I just do think it'd be interesting. No one's gonna pony up the dough for this, but wouldn't it be interesting if you just take like A Beautiful Mind? I'm just thinking of a movie off the top. There are absolutely no ride elements to that or anything like that, but. I don't know. Like, I think it'd be refreshing if there was a theme park that had, like, say Lionsgate opens something and they make, John Wick the ride or something.
The Green Mile.
Like let's do something different.
Yeah. The Green Mile. I think you couldn't make a roller coaster out of it, but you could make an immersive experience in the location that they shot it at, maybe?
It could be like okay, here's how I can say this, because I was at Universal in January, so it's relatively fresh in my head. Here's how the Green Mile plays out, because it can't be any worse than the Fast and Furious ride that's there, just for the record. Don't ever ride that. It's a pile of shit. You basically do like one of those 3D things where like you kind of have like a little pulley cart or something. There's a 3D visual and basically just a slow straight crawl. It literally does nothing. And you just have Harry Dean Stan say, walking the green mile, like continuously.
The entire time.
Maybe a couple like flash images of like Mr. Jingles and I don't know, Sam Rockwell in that movie. I don't know, something like that.
Would the ride be
It could shock you at one point.
Would the ride be 1 mile exactly?
I mean, that would be very cool if it was. I mean, just slow. I mean, you could probably most of these rides anywhere, like 3 minutes to get through at full speed.
Yeah.
I think we could make this happen, guys. Someone's gonna listen to this, and they're gonna. As long
as you boys are willing to invest, all the money, I'm more than happy to.
I got like $20 at this idea.
I'll give literally. I'm at the point where I can give you this idea for free. Just put my name in the credits.
Yeah, that could work.
Yeah.
Okay, final game, and then we are done. Swear to God. Yeah. This one more straightforward. It's just erasing one from existence. Very easy question to ask. So I'm going to pit 2 movies against each other, and you have to delete one, and it's just never going to be there. It's gone. Star Wars A New Hope or Star Trek Wrath of Khan?
Star Trek Wrath of Khan.
Star Trek Wrath of Khan.
It's out of there.
Yeah.
I didn't say, I was going to say Star Trek the motion picture, because technically speaking, that's the first theatrical for the Star Trek movies, but most people kind of hate that movie.
Right.
So I'm like, well, I got to pit it against Wrath of Khan, but I too would be like that because I'm just more of a Star Wars guy myself.
Yeah.
Now, I just thought of this loophole. Erasing it from existence, would we also be erasing it from our own minds of existence? So I can't erase. So I couldn't erase Star Trek and then just to later on make it myself.
Correct. Okay. Yeah, you don't have any of the story idea. It's gone. Yep, doesn't exist anymore.
I'm sorry to all my Trekkies or whatever.
Trekkies.
I'm sorry to all my Trekkies out there. Star Wars has more place in my heart.
Now, see if you guys have seen these comedies. I tried to put comedies on here. Animal House. Okay, I don't know if you've seen that. Hopefully, or Airplane.
I don't think I've ever seen Airplane.
Oh shit!
I
mean, you guys are young.
I haven't seen Animal House, so there you go.
Okay, but you've seen Airplane, or one of you has seen Airplane.
I've seen Animal House.
I've seen Airplane fourscore and many years ago.
What? Wait, is Airplane the one with who's that guy? It's the older gentleman with white hair. What's that?
Leslie Nielsen.
Yeah.
So
I've seen parts of it. I've just never seen the full movie.
You guys might have to watch the two. Like they're iconic comedies.
Oh yeah,
they're hilarious.
No, that's a bad habit of mine. Is like movies I haven't seen. I'll get into a rabbit hole of watching just like clips on YouTube.
Right.
And like they're intriguing. They're hilarious. I love them. But like I haven't sat down and watched the actual movie, which is
I think for this last one, I'm going to quite literally be impulsive, and I'm going to pick two random movies behind me. I'm not even going to look that.
No, I'm literally looking at them, and I'm like, I want to pull a switcheroo and just be like, oh.
Yes, and I don't even know what this is. Okay, Judas the Black Messiah or Castaway.
I've never seen.
Judas the Black Messiah.
It's okay,
but
I mean. I'm keeping like this.
Right.
This can.
Like, yeah.
I'm sorry. I can't take away Tom Hanks in the volleyball from the world.
Well said.
It's so good.
I'm sorry.
This
well
is
said.
Probably not the greatest comparison, but that's what's fun about this. Two completely different movies. So it made it work. You guys, any final thoughts before we wrap this up?
It was a great discussion. I enjoyed it. Quite a bit. It was nice to sit down and talk with, pretty much a complete stranger. Like aside from
I don't know you.
Some social media interactions and you stalking me on social media and all that stuff.
I mean, like I said, I had to do my due diligence, right. make sure you're not like a psychopath. I
appreciate it. I appreciate it. It was great just sitting down with somebody I've never met and talking about something that we have in common, something we both love, and it's been a great experience.
Awesome, man.
Yeah, it was great.
Dylan, this is time number 2 for you. Probably better circumstance this time around. Not that the first one's bad, but it's just more controlled.
I get that, and honestly, I like it whenever I'm able to just get here and same situation, just talk about my passions and do everything. Especially coming from what most people would call an uncreative town, it's very much it's therapeutic almost. So I really enjoy this, and I'm at an advantageous part of my filmmaking hobby, career, whatever I want to call it, where I can like really go in and really talk about what I really feel and what I really like.
Yeah.
And final thought, if I may flip the script.
Sure.
I'm looking at your like lists and everything, and I just thought of this. I'm gonna pit 2 trilogies against each other. One of them has to go.
Okay, so we're gonna do the eraser game. Okay.
Yep, the eraser game.
Okay.
And this is gonna be the penultimate one. Audience, feel free to play along.
Yeah.
All right.
Leave a comment.
Yeah. 2 trilogies. The newest Planet of the Apes trilogy.
Great choice.
Or Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight trilogy.
Ooh. So one is actually not like just a quick answer for me.
Right.
Okay. Let me think about this for a second. All right, I'm going to go through my thoughts out loud until one of you guys has a concrete answer for this. So, okay, Batman is Batman, right? I mean, he's iconic. He's been around forever. A lot of iterations of him, and a lot of people would argue Nolan's iterations are theatrically speaking, holy shit, the best, right? Mm-hmm. Though I would also say the Planet of the Apes hugely elevated the technology. Certainly people have a lot more respect for the motion capture, performance capture, sorry. I don't want to do discredit to Andy Serkis and his amazing team. Oh man, why'd you do this to me?
I'm wondering why I did this to myself.
Yeah, I'm not going to cop out though. I'm going to give an answer for better or worse. I don't believe in just, I'll think about that. You know what, man? I'm probably not going to be popular for this, but goodbye, Dark Knight, and goodbye, Batman. I'm keeping the apes, keeping the monkeys.
Yeah.
I can explain my reason if I gotta back it up, but
I won't make you do that.
I think for me,
It's a shit question.
I mean, it is a tough one. And there's pros and cons to both of them, and reasons to keep both of them. Yeah. But I think I'm going to go the opposite, and I'm going to keep the Dark Knight.
Yeah.
Mostly for the fact of like I'll admit I'm a comic book movie nerd. Like I'm a sucker for Marvel, for DC, any of them that come out. And I love when people, and this exact same argument can be made for the Planet of the Apes series, depending on the people, where I feel like the Dark Knight series brought a sophistication to the comic book genre, right? And that sort of was a blueprint for a lot of other great movies moving forward. And the same argument can be said about the Planet of the Apes, where it took an otherwise sort of almost cartoonish, series in the 60s. The original was
I can't remember the exact year, like 68, let's call it.
And it brought a sort of sophistication to the, and it wasn't like a remake.
No,
essentially it was almost like a prequel.
No,
but I feel like it just, for me personally, the Dark Knight had a larger impact on the movie escaping in general.
Yeah. No matter how you cut it, Tim Burton has some say in it because he directed the first Batman.
Yeah, that's
true. He paved the way for that.
Yeah, he paved the way for both.
Even George Clooney as Bat Nipples, like they paved the way.
Yep,
and intentionally paved the way. But
paved the way for what not to do in some of the cases, like the back credit.
There's literally like a whole YouTube video I think I watched on that of someone basically trying to utterly defend Batman and Robin because of just that, where it's like you don't get this without that.
Right.
It's so weird though. You go through shit just to get.
I mean, the big thing for me was like Heath Ledger's performance almost, and people talk about it all the time.
I mean, but there's for good reason,
right, and the fact that he won Best Actor.
Yeah, post his death.
Yeah.
Well.
And I was gonna try and say that with posthumous.
I can never. Yeah, I wasn't gonna try to say the word.
But that, like that shows that alone showed that the comic book genre could be taken seriously in the awards space,
Yeah, the highest. I mean, one of the highest accolades possible on the biggest platform.
And then you see it recreated.
It's true.
Like with the Joker, Joaquin Phoenix won Best Actor for his portrayal of the Joker.
Yeah,
and that got nominated for Best Picture. So you wouldn't have that without, but again, the same argument can be made for Planet of the Apes on a completely different, spectrum. Like,
I admit I didn't want to overthink the answer, and I just like monkeys.
Right. I'm a sucker for apes too. Yeah, exactly.
I don't want to diminish the monkey.
Right, right. Primates. We could say it's like an overarching, I
like Donkey Kong. So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You guys, it was a pleasure having you on.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having us.
And thanks everybody that listened to this point. I would be curious to hear what you guys would think of the Batman Dark Knight trilogy versus the Apes prequel trilogy. Though they are making Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes now too. I don't know if that's going to diminish the trilogy, but whatever. We'll leave the future to the side. But you guys, appreciate it.
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
is good.
Thank you very much.